What's up, guys? Good morning. Good morning. The calm before the storm. The tournament starts tomorrow. I'm going to fill out my bracket. I was thinking what made the most sense would be I just fill out my entire bracket here. And if it hopefully it helps you guys as you're filling out your bracket. And then tomorrow I'll release my bets for the games that I like. And same thing on Friday. Yesterday was amazing. That first game was just unbelievable. Feel terrible for St. Francis being on the wrong side of that just historical play, a play that you'll probably never forget if you saw it live. Alabama State throws the ball all the way down the court, and the ball just bounces perfectly, gets tipped right to the kid, makes a layup, and St. Francis loses a heartbreaker. It's their fault though. The kid made a great 3-pointer to tie the game for St. Francis, but then they got the stop and they turned the ball over, and so they gave Alabama State a chance, and that was that. It was stupid to take San Diego State yesterday. In hindsight, as North Carolina played the best they possibly could play, making every shot, played pissed off. Stupid start to the tournament. Whatever. But yeah, Carolina. I don't know if they proved anything, but they beat the crap out of San Diego State. That's for sure. We'll see how they do in the tournament. I still don't really like them. Just felt like they got really hot yesterday. San Diego State's not good enough offensively. They had to play the game in the 50s or 60s to win, and Carolina just blitzed them. So, all right, I'm going to fill out the bracket, and boom, let's roll. All right, got Auburn. We'll start in the South. So the 8-9, so Auburn advances. They'll play Alabama State, but I imagine they advance. And then Louisville versus Creighton, the definition of a 50-50 game. I'm going to roll with Louisville just because I hated the way Creighton finished against St. John's. They just looked too tired, too dead. Louisville disrespected as an 8 seed. The kid Edwards on Louisville is fantastic, and I'm gonna go with Louisville here to beat Creighton. Michigan, San Diego. I want to bet against Michigan. I really do. Everyone loves San Diego, but something just tells me that we're gonna get a Michigan Yale matchup in the second round. So I got Michigan advancing, and then I got Yale beating Texas A&M. A&M can't shoot. They pride themselves on offensive rebounding. I just have a bad feeling about A&M. Yale. The reason why I like Yale is because they actually had Danny Wolf, who's the best player on Michigan last year, and he transfers. They get back there. They're obviously going to be a well efficient, smart run team. And I just feel like A&M thinks they're going to bully their way through this game. And I got the upset. So I got Michigan advancing, and then I got Yale advancing. It's hard to bet against North Carolina after the way they just played yesterday. They're going to play Ole Miss. I don't want to take Carolina. I'm just going to take Ole Miss. I don't feel great about it. But Iowa State's playing Lipscomb. That'll be my first big upset. Iowa State's not going to have one of their best players. I just don't like the way they've been playing. I'm going to roll with Lipscomb there. Marquette, New Mexico, must see TV. This is a game you got to watch. Great point guard play. I'm going to roll with New Mexico in a slight upset. Just feels like Marquette, they just don't have enough players outside of Cam Jones. And I like New Mexico. I haven't seen a ton of New Mexico, but I like New Mexico enough there to beat Marquette. And I got Michigan State rolling over Bryant. In the second round, it'll be, I don't know, much of a fight here for Louisville against Auburn. Creighton probably puts up a better fight against Auburn. Louisville's like a worse version, in my opinion, of Auburn. Like the way they're built, just less athletic, not enough players. I think Auburn rolls, whether it's Louisville or Creighton, but I got them beating Louisville. The Yale, Michigan, I'm gonna go with Yale. Just the revenge factor, like I said, against their best player, Danny Wolf. Plus, I think there's a better chance that San Diego could beat Michigan. I like Yale. They were there last year. They beat Auburn. So we'll roll with Yale to get to the rematch with Auburn in the Sweet 16. And then on the other side of the bracket, I don't feel great about it. I guess, I probably should feel a little bit better here with Lipscomb versus Ole Miss when most people probably have North Carolina versus Iowa State. I'm just going to roll with Ole Miss. They're very, very, very well coached. I've seen enough of them. They've gone through the SEC. They're not my favorite team. If they had a different matchup, maybe they wouldn't get to the Sweet 16. But I don't know. I don't want to bet North Carolina. And if Iowa State gets past Lipscomb, which I know they're favored to do so, I got Lipscomb. But even if Iowa State got past there, I could see Ole Miss clipping them. So we'll roll with Ole Miss. I like Michigan State. over New Mexico. I like Michigan State over Marquette. I like Michigan State a lot, as we'll see. So I got Auburn versus Yale, and then we got Ole Miss versus Michigan State. So this one will just be chalk for me in the South. I just think it's an easy pathway for Auburn, whether they got Michigan, whether they get Yale, San Diego, whoever they get in the Sweet 16. I think they'll probably be in a really good spot. A&M, if they get there, tough matchup for Auburn because they've already played them. They know each other. But Auburn, I like their pathway, and I like Michigan State. Even if Iowa State got that far, I'd like Michigan State. So I got Michigan State to beat Ole Miss, and then I got Michigan State versus Auburn, and I like that for Michigan State. I got Michigan State in the Final Four. So wouldn't shock me if Auburn beat them. Should be a really good game, but Michigan State's just too disciplined. They're too tough inside. Auburn will have too much trouble scoring. I think Michigan State's really good. I think it's better for them that they lost to Wisconsin in the Big Ten semis. So I'll get Michigan State coming out of the South. We'll go to the East. Duke is playing whoever wins tonight. Mount St. Mary's and American. Don't think that will be much of a game, so we'll roll with Duke. Mississippi State, Baylor. I'm gonna go. I don't really love this game, but I'm just gonna go Mississippi State. I think most people will probably go Baylor. Baylor. I don't know. And go either way on this game. What's his face? I think that now I'm losing his name. But anyway, I think Mississippi State's got the best player. If I knew his name, that'd be great. All these names floating in my head. But anyway, got Mississippi State beating Baylor. But both 8-9 games I don't feel really great about. I guess I just feel better about the SEC than the Big 12. But Duke should roll into the Sweet 16 regardless. All right, move along. Oregon Liberty, really good game. Oregon has had a lot of success in the tournament. They're usually the dog, though. They're not really. This is a pretty high seed for them as a 5. They're playing Liberty. Liberty's explosive. Haven't seen a ton of them, but everything you hear about them is boom, 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 boom. I'm gonna go with Oregon. I don't feel great about it, but we'll just take Oregon on pedigree. No one's taking Akron. Like anybody I listen to is like, yeah, it's just a bad matchup for Akron against Arizona. I don't care. I just don't like Arizona at all. So I'm just going to take Akron here. And I don't have a lot of logic here, but I just don't like Arizona. I don't like the way they play defense. And the MAC I'm surprised that the spread's like this and no one likes Akron. I'd have to do a little bit more research on Akron to actually put some money on it. That's more for tomorrow. Filling out the bracket's one thing. Actually putting money on these games is something different. But anywho, I'm going to go with Akron. So Akron over Arizona. I like VCU over BYU. A lot of people are high on BYU, but I'm going to roll with VCU. I said it with Clayton the other day. I prefer to take the defensive teams, especially in the first round when you're in a brand new arena. The shooting might be difficult one way or the other, no matter what. Something to get adjusted to, all kinds of different things. So I'll take defense, especially early. I like VCU a lot over BYU. So we'll go VCU there. Wisconsin, Montana. Don't know enough about Montana. Wisconsin's, we'll see about Wisconsin. I think they lose the next round, regardless whether it's VCU or BYU. But I'll give them over Montana because I don't know enough about Montana. St. Mary's, Vanderbilt. I'm going to go St. Mary's. I think this is the best St. Mary's team positioned itself for the postseason because they had the expectations last year as a 5 seed. They lost to Grand Canyon in the first round. I like this team. They're senior based. They're going to play very slow. Vanderbilt, I think they're happy to be there, so we'll go with St. Mary's. The 2 is Bama. They're facing Robert Morris. Bama leaves a lot to be desired the way they finish against Florida after destroying Kentucky. I imagine they win that game. So Alabama advances. Duke versus Mississippi State, whoever it is, a Mississippi State Baylor. It's not going to be too much of a challenge, I don't believe, for Duke. Duke rolls. Oregon versus Akron. This is the one that I feel I don't know. I could see any of the 3 of the 4 teams in there, whether it's Oregon, Arizona, or Liberty. Since I have it, Oregon, Akron, we'll just roll with Oregon to get there to the Sweet 16. I probably won't put any money on this because this Oregon team is just, I don't know. I don't love it. I don't like the way they played in the Big Ten championship. So, but It's a decent matchup for. You know what? I'm switching everything. I'm just going Liberty. I was gonna send Liberty to the Sweet 16. Screw it. While I'm doing it, I don't like Oregon enough. I can hear it in my voice, so we'll just have Liberty beating Oregon, Liberty beating Akron. Whether it's Liberty, Arizona, we'll go with Liberty. There it is, Liberty, Duke, Liberty. Six through, or where did I go? So then we got VCU versus Wisconsin. I like VCU. I feel much more confident on the bottom side of this bracket. I'm going to roll with VCU. I think the post Shaka Smart era, they've been consistent. Smart's bounced all over the place. He's at Marquette now. He hasn't won big, and VCU builds a program, just tough guys. It's a great area of basketball. They recruit locally. Guys stay. I like VCU. So VCU beats Wisconsin. St. Mary's probably doesn't have the horses to hang with Alabama, although it's the ultimate contrast in style. Yeah, it's hard to think St. Mary's actually beats them. Do I think they could keep it close? Yeah, but I think Alabama gets past them. But I don't think Alabama gets past VCU. So that'll be my upset. I'll have VCU. I'm not going to have another blabberbox about the Liberty situation. So we just have Duke advancing. But I'm going to go with VCU as my, I guess, biggest upset or highest seed to advance the furthest. I got them getting all the way to the Elite Eight. I just really like this team, and I think it's a fairly good matchup for them against Alabama because Alabama's going to go against St. Mary's or Vanderbilt the game before, which will not be able to play the way VCU does. Alabama has been inconsistent. There's been some bickering in-house. The team's not as good as it was last year. Grant Nelson's banged up. Yeah, I don't love Alabama in this spot, so I'll be contrarian and go with VCU and have Duke knock off VCU eventually. But yeah, I got VCU traveling all the way to the Elite Eight with Duke going to the Final Four. So in the Midwest is the one that I feel the least confident about because I don't like the 1 or the 2 seed, but I don't really like the 3 seed. And I don't love the 4 seed. So foreshadowing where I ended up here with the Midwest, but Houston should roll into their second round game, and I think they roll into the Sweet 16 because Gonzaga, Georgia, everyone's going to take Gonzaga here, and they've been in 9 straight Sweet 16s. They're a big favorite for an 8-9 game. I don't know if I have a little local bias, but I like Georgia. I like Georgia beat Gonzaga. I more so fading Gonzaga, and I think Georgia's big enough to dominate inside. It's going to be Gonzaga hasn't played a team that's going to be physical and big the way Georgia is in a while. I think St. Mary's presents one type of challenge for Gonzaga this year, but Georgia's going to present a different one. And I just don't love Mark Few's team. I think Gonzaga falls off. I know that they probably could have been, 6 or 7 seed, but I'll go contrarian here and take Georgia. But Houston probably beats Georgia. I think they definitely beat Gonzaga, even though I don't love this Houston team. I got Houston in the Sweet 16. The 5-12, Clemson, McNeese State. I'll go Clemson, period. Like Clemson a lot. And I will bet against Purdue for sure. High Point, I think that's an early game on Thursday. High Point's first year there. Purdue loses in the first round. I don't say often, but frequently. Plus, I hate Purdue. We'll go High Point. And God, this Illinois, I don't know. If Xavier looks good tonight, I'll probably take Xavier to beat Illinois. Hell, I'll probably take Xavier or Texas to beat Illinois. I cannot, in good conscience, take Illinois. After watching Maryland destroy them in that first half, they looked horrible. The coach is pissed off. I don't know. I think that's a bad sign. I'm surprised they got a 6 seed. I'll just take whoever, wins tonight. Kentucky versus Troy. I'll take Kentucky. They're very efficient offensively. The new coach, they'll really not want to lose this first game the way Calipari went out. So I'll take Kentucky to beat Troy, although I'm bitter at Kentucky for being a 3 seed. I like UCLA over Utah State, mainly because I just like UCLA the way they play. I like the coach. I don't love it, but I'll take UCLA. I wish it was a better 7 seed because it's not a good matchup for UCLA against Tennessee. Tennessee against Wofford. I'll bet Wofford tomorrow. That's for sure. Take my points. It's 19 of them, and Tennessee sucks at offense. I don't like Tennessee, but yeah, I think they will end up winning that game, and they'll beat UCLA or Utah State. It's a good matchup for Tennessee. So I got Houston going to the Sweet 16. I got Clemson going to the Sweet 16 because I got Clemson knocking off High Point. I had them beating Purdue, even if Purdue gets through. I like this Clemson team a lot. Ian Shefflin and Chase Hunter, they're back. They played Alabama really tight in the Elite Eight, so I'm gonna have Clemson knocking off Houston at the top of the bracket. At the bottom of the bracket, depending on how they're playing, whether it's Xavier or Texas, and maybe they'd knock off Kentucky. Wouldn't be shocked, but yeah, I'll at this point I'll put in Kentucky. See how the game goes tonight, and I do think it'll be Kentucky Tennessee with an SEC rematch there at the bottom. Probably got to go Tennessee. I don't love Tennessee, but it's a really good draw for Tennessee. So as much as I want to fade them, I think they're going to get all the way to the Elite Eight because I'm not 100% sure Kentucky gets there. So based on that, I'll roll with Tennessee in the Rick Barnes matchup. Rick Barnes started his career at Clemson. Rick Barnes is a great coach. He is, but he has not gotten over the hump, and I think Clemson knocks him off. I think Clemson gets to the Final Four. The battle of the Rick Barnes, the battle of the Oranges, Clemson, Tennessee. In the Elite Eight, we'll go with Clemson. So I got Clemson, Duke, and Michigan State. And then in Maryland's bracket, I want to just put Maryland in there, but God, I've already talked about this for so much, but Maryland's just a tough draw. So the way I see it going, I don't know. As far as betting on tomorrow, I still want to do a little bit more research, but the way I see it in the West is we got Florida versus UConn because I think UConn beats Oklahoma. So we got Florida versus UConn. I will obviously take Maryland. It's going to be a dogfight, though, against Grand Canyon. It won't be easy. I won't give the points. Memphis, Colorado State. We'll find out if Memphis's guard's going to play. I'm just going to pencil in Memphis regardless. I'll have Maryland winning the following game. And then I like Drake over Missouri. That one I probably feel more confident about than almost any of the other first round games in that bracket. I'll take Drake. Again, contrast in style. Give me the defensive team over the smaller offensive team from the SEC. So I'll take Drake. Texas Tech and UNC Wilmington. I want to talk myself into UNC Wilmington and take the points because Texas Tech just plays somewhat frantically. I don't like how they play in the Big 12 tournament. I didn't love how they finished down the stretch. I didn't like how they played against Houston at home, had trouble scoring. So if it's a lot of points, I'll probably roll with North Carolina Wilmington, but Texas Tech most likely advances in the first round. Kansas Arkansas is probably the first round game that I can't wait to watch the most. You know, that's just a classic with Self versus Calipari. Kansas should win this game, and it wouldn't shock me if they dominated. Arkansas seems all over the place. Arkansas's got this 5-star freshman who hasn't played in a while, Boogie something. But anyway, he's going to play. I don't know if it helps him or not because they weren't very good with him. Calipari versus Bill Self. I don't know. Winner gets Rick Pitino, so I'll go with Kansas. But then I got St. John's at the bottom of the bracket, knocking them off. So back to the top. Florida UConn will be must-see TV. I'm just going to take UConn to be contrarian. I don't know. If Florida's going to have a lot of pressure on them, it's like a good spot for UConn because even though they're going to go for their third straight, they'll be big underdogs, so a lot of motivation into it. I'll just say UConn pulls off a massive upset, and we'll pencil Maryland in there. So we got Maryland versus UConn in the in the Sweet 16, and then whether it's Kansas or Arkansas, they'll be overmatched by St. John's. I think St. John's rolls and gets to the Elite Eight. So St. John's and Maryland versus UConn, Maryland versus Florida. I'm just gonna put Maryland in there, even though I'll put Maryland in there. I'm gonna put St. John's in the Final Four for my bracket, but I'll just put Maryland in there. I'll feel better doing it. Anyway, so I got St. John's, Michigan State in the Final Four versus Duke, Clemson, which would be a hell of a matchup. ACC, they get to play again. Duke, Clemson. Duke probably beats them. I can't believe I got Duke in the stupid championship. Whatever. I hope Liberty just beats Duke, and then everybody gets it wrong. I heard something on ESPN that after like the first 9 million or so brackets came in, 40% of them had Duke winning it all. which was pretty interesting. I think a lot of people end up with Houston. The numbers look really good for Houston. Duke, Houston, and Florida. And Auburn, I mean, is the number one overall seed. I'm going to go with Michigan State, St. John's winner to win the whole thing. That would be the best matchup. I would love to see a Michigan State, St. John's. If Maryland can't get there, even Florida, St. John's in the Elite Eight would be amazing. A third time of UConn, St. John's would be great. But St. John's, Michigan State, St. John's, Auburn. I'm just gonna go St. John's. Rick Pitino gets the revenge. Rick Pitino year. The way they turn it on at the end and just kill teams reminds me of what UConn did the past 2 years. They're in the best shape. They played the best defense. So we'll go St. John's. All right. Hopefully that helps. And God knows, uh, I will post this again if I get everything right. If not, we'll just memory hold this for never again. All right. Anyway, let me get out of here. But before I do it, Kobe Mayo, quick thoughts. He gets sent down. You know what? His quote about it's frustrating, this, that, and the third. People can talk about his quote. I don't really care about his quote. What I care about is that he was stupid enough to say it out loud. That's the part that is immature. That's the part. What he said is obvious. That's how everybody would feel. He's allowed to feel that way. The fact that he's immature, ignorant, stupid's not the nicest word, but immature and ignorant enough to say it out loud, not knowing how it sounds, because then it just opens up the obvious retort, which was you suck. Like every time we've seen you play at Major League Baseball, you suck. So what do you want us to say back to our best prospect, basically in AAA, right? Like that you suck. Is that what the conversation should be? That you basically suck. You suck. You suck. No, I don't want to say that. I don't want to pull up the numbers and explain to him why, because it should be obvious to him. That's the disappointing part, is the lack of self-awareness. You can be mad all you want. You can be frustrated, but what did you think was going to happen? You had to have an amazing spring to make this team. I thought it was 100% no chance he makes it, even if he had an amazing spring. But he's been terrible. Like the numbers are just terrible. So I don't know what he expected. I hope he tears it up in AAA and then we can trade him, because to me, it just doesn't fit. That showed some insight into his personality and maybe why he struggled last year when he came up here. Maybe he has too high of an opinion of himself, because that was just crazy. Um, yeah, he might have proven everything he can in AAA, but where does he think he should play? Like I'm genuinely curious on that. But if he thinks he's better than Mountcastle and Arias, then good for him. Maybe he has more upside. Let's ship him out of there in June, July. Once he pounds AAA baseball, let's just get him out of here, because there's nowhere to fit him in. It just doesn't work. Mountcastle's been here from the beginning. He wouldn't kill the Orioles to invest in players that have been here. And if Mountcastle's going to stay, then there's just no room for him, right? Like there's just no room. So you do the math. We don't have to sit here and go over all the players, but he doesn't play defense good enough to just pencil him in there as a utility guy that can play all over the place. He's like a first baseman, DH, or third baseman. And last time I checked, we have Westberg, Gunnar, and Jackson. So there's no real place for him. And with Mountcastle. So, yeah, see ya. And Basayo coming up, it's just no room. So that quote, that's my take on that. I don't want to be harsh on him, but that the ignorance of saying it out loud and not realizing the obvious retort that would come back from fans and media, yeah, I don't know what you would expect. So anyway, ended on a positive with the Orioles as we're a week away from baseball. I guess 8 days away. Is Povich looks really good. I think it's obvious that he should get the fifth starting spot, and Big Al can just hang out in the bullpen. You're going to need him. Unfortunately, one of the guys will get rocked. That's just how things work in baseball. So he's going to be needed for long relief. He might be needed twice in 1 week for long relief. So just let Povich have it. We need the lefty in there. It's a good sign to, the fact that he's pitching better now with the pressure, knowing that last start the other night, last night was basically like his last opportunity. Maybe he gets one more before they make a decision. But to me, that was good enough to let him have it, let him have that fifth start. And so not too much has changed since last year, as the Dodgers are roll and win the first two games. If you saw any of that, Shohei hit a home run this morning. So I was trying to think of what time it was, like Game started at 6. But all right, I'll get out of here. Bets will be out tomorrow. Hopefully this helped. At least maybe it was background noise for some of you. Have a good day.